Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and we are here today, guys, because we did a video on the channel not too long ago, and it was how to fix Celtic in the January window with 2 signings. When I made that video, I was very much in the headspace of the board are digging their head in the sand. Brendan Rodgers is kind of seeing out his time, working his ticket. It was a great expression I seen in one of the live chats. And, you know, we're probably just going to go through the motions. We're going to go through the Groundhog Day of the teen 2000s, you know, the 2010 era where it was biscuit tin mentality and really just bargain basement shopping. But really, since that video has been made, quite a lot has happened in a really quick space of time, and it really has been magnified, I suppose, by losing to Dundee. At point of recording, we are still to play Hearts this weekend. We have Sturm Graz in the Europa League on Thursday night, and the Europa League does kind of work itself into everything I want to kind of grasp with you guys in the video today, because the Europa League, it feels like everyone is kind of half written off. You wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers maybe did some squad rotations, maybe played the likes of like Kobe Donovan, for example, or tried some new kind of formation in that match, knowing that it's really all about the Hearts game at the weekend and really focusing and prioritising on the league. Why is that going to reign above all else now, it feels like? It's because the whole team, the club, everyone wants to win titles, wants to qualify for the Champions League, and as much as the egg is on the club's face for the Kairat scenario, the whole summer transfer window, the way things are going, man, we might not be playing Kairat next year, you know, so we really need to buck up our ideas in a big way. Hearts are really presenting themselves as being a credible threat, and, you know, I had them in for second this year. I'm not really too surprised that they're kicking everyone else's butt and taking names so far this year, but with the points we have dropped already, the race is on. And I know all of you are going to say Hearts are going to drop points, and I do agree. Hearts are not going to finish this season as invincibles. They will drop points, of that there is no doubt, but will they drop more points than Celtic? What will be the situation come January with Celtic and Hearts? Who will be first and second? What will the points gap be? Well, even the other team in Glasgow have got their act together a little bit and start to climb up the table and maybe just come into the conversation. I don't think they'll be able to do much more than that, really. And for the distance, for the gap that Hearts have bridged, and, you know, really this is so important for the Celtic hierarchy, the club, to really be mindful of and hopefully thoroughly embarrassed by. But how much of an advantage on Hearts does Celtic have? I've got this t-shirt here, and this has been mentioned quite a lot in the build-up to maybe even the game at the weekend. But I would dare say that Celtic's advantage over Hearts is probably the thick end of 137 years. It's so far beyond institutional for how big Celtic have been throughout its entire history that it is beyond laughable that Hearts have bridged that gap in one transfer window. And if you look at their net spend, like they've spent basically nothing. What will they do in January if they can smell a bit of blood in the water? Maybe they're in pole position still, you know, and they're going to want to hold ground, and they'll be singing all that, won't they? And this is a big part of the context, I think, for why I wanted to have this discussion with you guys today is, what are we going to do in January? What will because there's so many different dimensions here to what we think should be done, what we would expect to be done, what the club have got their head in their sand believing. Really, nobody's got any real grasp on what that could mean. And then what will be the reality of what will actually happen? We might actually have some outgoings as well. And everyone from the club hierarchy all the way to the man in the street is in agreement that there was so much unfinished business from the summer. It's untrue. The squad is underserved and needs some further reinforcements. But if we come into January and let's imagine the Europa League is a write-off, like we are just rotating guys, we are bleeding some guys in, we're getting some minutes in that competition, and we are putting all of our energy and effort into the league, and we are still 2 points behind, 1 point behind, 8 points behind, whatever you want to imagine. How much of an upgrade does this squad need to be able to, you know, resume its, I don't want to quite say rightful place, because that sounds a little bit, you know, titled, I suppose is the word a lot of people use in this kind of context, I guess. But, you know, we all expected Celtic to win the league this year. We would still expect them to probably go on and win the league this year. And if come January that isn't within their hands, you know, how much will be needed in the squad? Who will be needed to bridge that gap to make it all happen? At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you cry, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And the comment section on this video is the most important thing about the video. I am here for your interactions, your feedback. What do you expect the club to do? Which is probably for most of you going to be very little, but what is very little? We had some transfers, we'll talk about it in the video, but that fell through, that slipped between our fingers. We might have some outgoings. We are in a positive net spend situation at the moment as well. So there's what do we expect them to do? What should they do really in this situation? What should be the sort of tactic? What should be the policy, the transfer strategy that we're deploying? And then, you know, probably what is going to be the reality? What do you think will really happen? Because I think for as much as we could be pessimistic, and I say we'll get into it in more details in a second, but surely if the club are going to bury their head in their sand and say, I don't acknowledge the premise of your question, and shrugging and all the rest of it, there is no excuse. They cannot lose the league to Hearts. They cannot go into this transfer window and not correct the wrongs of the summer window. And I was calling for heads to roll. I genuinely feel like from just the corporate, the company point of view, the failing to qualify for the Champions League, the failing in the summer transfer window should result in wholehearted change. Someone should be accountable for that, and we should see some sort of consequence for it. They seem to be in a bit of denial that they're just going to roll through and just keep ploughing on, but surely this January window, is it the biggest transfer window of Celtic's modern history in the new millennium? It's definitely right up there. It has to be right up there, as well as, you know, the year that we're not going to mention in terms of importance and everything that goes around it. But yeah, we'll get stuck into all that, and I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Please hit like if you do enjoy the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. I've already said this, but yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. As this is a squad as we currently find it now, and to regular viewers on the channel, this will be a very familiar sight. We've got probably just about enough heads and bodies in defence where really, if we commit any more tangible assets, resources, time, energy, fax machine, ink, anything like that at all, battery in your phone, credit in your phone, then it will be a catastrophic waste of resources, just to put it plainly. We all know we're so lopsided with having about 12 left wingers and no right wingers, and we know that there's a huge gap in the middle of the pitch here for an extra dimension, an enforcer, something like that. The main thing I want to kind of try and establish through you guys in the comment section and through me talking about it here is really, like, on the battle board, on the depth chart that they've got in at Lennoxtown, pinned up on the wall with all the little faces on it, how many players did they think is missing from this equation here? You know, we know that we went for Kasper Dolberg, for example, as a striker. We ended up getting Iheanacho. Some of the chat around then was that we were going to be trying to get two strikers, and we're going to try and loan out Shin Yamada. We've seen Osmond filter into the B team, and Kenny has became de facto, you know, kind of the third striker, if you want to include Dyson in that kind of depth chart. But as we've seen against Dundee, essentially the first striker off the bench, isn't he? And for all the players we were linked to, we never really were linked to any right wingers, and this is something that I think surely has to have jumped up the priority list, has to have really jumped up the agenda, having seen the way the team has played and how the manager has really struggled to find balance. And there is a little bit of it that maybe Brendan's been a bit dogmatic with, like, oh, we're not going to play this guy on the right-hand side. And, you know, as I'm recording this, we've not changed formation, which Rodgers has said that he's going to be exploring. So maybe some of that will be a bit redundant. But in either case, we really don't have a right winger. And again, for all the chat and all the people we were linked to, another midfielder, like the Bobby Clark thing, I'm not taking that seriously, but it's in the window, like Bayatejic. And, you know, there was a few players we weren't linked to in the summer. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that kind of reared its head again. So, like, we're not going to be buying any defenders. I think we can probably all kind of agree in unison. Defence and goalkeeper, we're not going to be doing anything there with at all. Now, I was going to put defensive midfielder, but let's just put a midfielder, right? Just to save ourselves from the heartbreak, because we know we're not going to get the exact profile of what we want. We're not going to get that shield, that defensive bulldog in there just to, you know, cover the defence, be able to step out to a counter-attack and snuff it out. We're probably going to get somebody that can do that, but is also someone that likes to go forward a bit. But in any case, there's no doubt about it, we need another midfielder, and we're almost certainly going to need another right winger. And these are two of the positions that we highlighted on the video that we did recently, talking about two transfers to fix Celtic in January. And if you want to look at some of the individuals that I would nominate or back or whatever, and so, you know, I've tried to keep them as very realistic to something Celtic could actually do. And my top pick for midfield, by the way, is actually started playing a lot more in Brazil, and the numbers he's putting up now are pretty wild. So if Celtic did act on that one really quickly, it would work. It would do good. But with how we're lacking in goal scoring threat, and really with Shin Yamada being cut adrift and Johnny Kenny and Osmond, this whole situation, we do expect Aiza Maeda to probably be out the door in January, which takes away him as one of these other striker options. We have to be looking for another centre forward in the team. I don't think there's any if buts or maybes about it. We need someone else that can play in this position, and ideally it's someone that has the same sort of technique, the same sort of finishing power as a Kelechi Iheanacho. But as we've seen with Iheanacho, Ida, Kyogo, Giakoumakis, everyone that we've had for a long time, since the likes of Edouard and Dembele, is we don't really have any proper ball players, like guys that can just drop into these types of pockets and have some lovely link-up play with Hatate or Tuneki or Jota and really play football from a bit deeper in the pitch and make something happen, particularly in Europe, although this is something we're not really too concerned about right now. Obviously, we're thinking about the league and all the rest of it, but we need someone that can actually play football a little bit deeper. They're not just a penalty box finisher, and even if we are going to change formations, we maybe have different managers in the not too distant future that might have different tactics or whatever. We need someone that can be a bit more versatile, but what I don't want for the versatility in the centre forward is being able to play wide. I want them just to be someone that can be versatile in open play. Like if we're struggling to get it through the blocks, we've got someone that can drop in and make something happen. Or if we're backs against the wall, big away game for 10 minutes in a kind of phase of play spell, or a big game in Europe or something, can be effective in counter-attack and can transition up the pitch with good footballing ability. Not just pace, but actual techers, can slice a pass, knows the run to make, that kind of thing. So I would add a third player into the reckoning for where we're at right now and the reality of the situation that we're facing. And I know some of you guys reckon Hatate is going to leave. I don't feel it, I don't see it. I think the rest of the midfield is probably quite safe, and I am on record, and I'll kind of repeat it again for this video, but I do think Bernardo is getting the Lagerbielke, he's getting the Naroki treatment with the minutes that he's had so far this season, and I wouldn't be so surprised if he left. And then something that might be a surprise to some of us, I could see us actually getting a second midfielder in. Now, part of the reason I think I could see this happening is midfielders compared to strikers are just generally cheaper in the market, and for the sort of price point we're probably going to want to shop at for two midfielders, we're probably going to be able to afford two, and we're probably going to try and bring two in, with maybe having the one exit in Paulo Bernardo. Now with Dyson leaving, we're kind of hoping that Jota just steps into that breach, and really in terms of players that are effective in the matchday squad, we're not losing someone. As soon as Dyson walks out, we can have Jota, so we're at a level pegging. And adding in a centre forward and a right winger should just enhance us from where we're at right now, which is lovely. Now, I'm not saying that to kind of let the board off the hook or anything like that, but I've got 4 players here, and the quality of player that we are going to need, particularly for 2 of them, has to be upper echelon. Has to be guys that we are going to spend a chunk of money on, 7+ million, and that could go to anywhere. If we were to buy somebody, and I don't think we will, and this is something I want to chat about in the video, but if we spent 14 million on someone in the summer, in January, that's the sort of profile level that we have to get to. Now, part of the thinking behind this video as well, I really want to put this out there as early as possible, is the January window is a little bit away. Brendan Rodgers will not be talking, thinking or discussing transfers, as you can imagine, beyond comparing the players to Honda Civics and all the rest of it. But everyone else at Celtic that's involved in the transfer department should be working overtime. We should be looking to get business done in January, toot sweet, buttoned up and ready to go, so that when that window opens, yeah, maybe we need to wait for international clearance or work permit crap or something like that, fine, but there's nothing stopping us doing business. In this current window, we are 15 million euros up transfer net spend, and that doesn't include the Jeremy Frimpong money or any other incentive money that we'll have received. So I think as a base kind of spend, we have to have 15 million euros sitting already allocated for the January window, in my point of view. Now, I do think that if we were to sell Daizen Maeda and whatever happens with Bernardo, I do not think that will really influence or impact any spending that we do in January. I think the board will somehow, even still, get out of the January transfer window either not spending that much net or maybe even making money. Would not rule it out, would not surprise me one iota. But I think that will be balanced off against the fact that we will actually spend. We're not just going to sell and bring in 2 guys on loan or some. I just don't see that even being an available option to the powers that be at the club anymore. This is dire straits for where the squad is at the moment, and 1 or 2 more results at point of recording go against you. What a season we have got on our hands here. But is 15 million enough to go and get 4 players that should influence our best 16, our best 18 at a real push? Maybe, if you're quite cute. And now the January window has some pros and some cons around it, as we've spoke about at length on the channel. We've seen some good signings done by Celtic, and we've seen plenty of clubs be effective in the January window. And we've even heard over the last year or two, even Brendan Rodgers and other people like Ange saying like, it's not really that hard a window to do business in. Everyone does business in January now, but you just need to really have your dominoes lined up. You really do need to have your ducks in a row and, you know, go after your targets when you've got them ID'd. But one of the problems can be is it's mid-season and you're pulling someone out who's maybe a good player, should be a good player, should be doing well out of a team that really want to keep them, and you might need to spend just a little bit more to get them over the line. And I think with how much they've cheapskated the transfer windows in the last couple of seasons, this is a summer where they just don't, you know, the behaviour that we've seen for Tunecki, and if you remember how we acquired Tunecki, it was the, you know, going up in £5 increments on the bidding, wasn't it? Until eventually just giving, like just shoving money in Hammarby's face and just saying, take our money, we are taking your player, here's €5 million, we know he's not worth it, but we don't care, we need the signing. That's the sort of behaviour that we probably are going to need to exercise in the January window. And I think if you're to get 4 players into the squad, 15 million probably isn't going to be enough to really get the job done. And again, is this another conversation point where does the budget rule again? Do they repeat the same bloody mistakes again and hide behind the, no, we're world class and we've got a modern football transfer department? I can't imagine that reality, but equally at the same time, I can't imagine it. I would love us to spend 25 million, is kind of what I'm trying to dance at here. I'd love us to spend 20, it doesn't need to be net. If Dyson goes for, whatever Dyson goes for, I've heard so many people say he'll go for 5, he'll go for 14, and any number in between really, contract status and all the rest of it. But we've already got 15 million to the good in the bank already, and I know we've not got Champions League money to fill the club's coffers, etc., but with everything that's been going on right now, that 15 million has to be like base. And then if we are selling players, and really when the going gets tough in the January window, when it's like, you know, this is the guy we want, we've almost got the deal over the line, but we're going to need to spend 7 million on him rather than 4 or 5, the spend will add up quite quickly. And to get 4 players in of like a decent calibre that we want to win the league, we want it, hey, let's imagine we're even in the top 24 in the Europa League and we're going to cruise into that position. We'll get again 10 European games this season. You would want to at least learn from the Bayern Munich era of losing the whole Kyogo situation and being a striker down, and you could have had a really profitable and successful run. And the board, in the club again, if we are in that situation, it's maybe an easy win for them. When they say we've been in the group stages of European football 19 out of 20 seasons, and then including Europa League group stages as some marker of success, if they're going to be that petty, then again, surely they're hopefully going to be petty enough to say, oh, well, we had a run in the Europa League. And again, that's something that, if we're going to be in the top 24, should further incentivise them, I would hope, imagine and pray, to go and do this level of business. Now, the next thing you're probably asking me is, Quinny, where do we get these types of players? Now, I did a video very, very recently that I've referenced already, and I think a lot of the names and faces that are in that would still remain as my top targets in terms of the profile, the leagues they come from, the price point that they're all at. But really, if we're putting chips on the table and we're thinking about what should Celtic's transfer policy be, where should they be shopping, I am continuously baffled at how we don't go to Spain. La Liga in particular, but La Liga too for some attacking players, and even some, you know, maybe just some players in general, is a very overlooked market, and there's so many high quality players there that really do bring with them the baseline, a really high floor on, technically the level they're going to be at, football IQ wise on the pitch, the level they're going to be at. And then the real test of moving to a team like Celtic is their mettle, their personality. Can they rise to the challenge? Are they really a winner? Do they have that X factor to kick on a gear and improve themselves and be a good player for us? And Spain has got a really rich culture of football. I don't need to tell you any of use that. And now even outside the El Clasico clubs, every club across Spain has got really good stories of youth development, and a lot of them have got really exciting players in their ranks that want to play Europa League, want to play Champions League, want to win trophies. And a lot of those guys, again, if you want to think about the board doing it for self-serving reasons, if you can get a good player out of La Liga for under €8 million and they can work well for you, they are very much on the radar already of the top 5 leagues. Other higher up the food chain clubs that, similar to a Matt O'Reilly situation, you could quickly turn them around and sell them to another big team for 20-30 million. And that's something we can maybe look at in a little bit more detail, a little bit closer to the time. So I just wanted to look at this as one of the sections of the video. So our net spend, as we know, for this year is plus 15. Now, we've all done this 1,000 times before, and I'm not looking to, tally up the tab and see how much money they've made from transfers or whatever, but I'm just trying to get a little gauge here on exactly, we've spent 45 in the past before, we've we have had these big spends, but the net spend is always clipped in nicely because we sell so much as well. Yeah, the window before that at 27. Again, a window we maybe cheaped out on a little bit, but we did spend 5 million in January on Nicholas Kuhn. Could we get 3 or 4 transfers of that level? Again, that amount adds up quite quickly, doesn't it? So my gut, that little voice inside me tells me we're going to spend like 8 million quid on 3 players and try and get away with it. But then I've got this other voice, and then here we go, yeah, it's 38 million. Again, we can spend this amount, and this is maybe a bit disingenuous because it's got Jota at 16 with his Saudi add-ons and whatever, but point remains, like, we have let that amount of money leave the bank account within a summer and a January window. It's not beyond our possibilities, it's not beyond the realms of imagination. That if we did sell Dyson and whatever else, that could maybe get into the 40s, and maybe we could see this get into the 30s. I wouldn't rule it out. I say the board would still come out net up, which is their mantra. We could still see ourselves see some significant investment. I don't know if that's been... So, I say there's another voice in me that says they can't get away with that this time. They really can't get away with spending 8 million and getting Shane Duffy in and going and loaning in Diego Laxalt and Jeremy Toljan, and they can't do that again. They're really backed into a corner. So yeah, I'm really torn between history repeating itself and we cheapskate and nickel and dime and do absolutely nothing until the last day of the window and get 5th and 6th choices in, and the feeling of they cannot let that happen. They have to be prepared. They've really put their neck on the block and said, like, we know what we're doing and you don't understand, and we've got a professional multidisciplinary department and yada yada. And if that is the case, you need to back that up. And this is, like I said earlier, is this the biggest window of the modern history? So I'm really torn, and I really don't know where it's going to fall. I'm really interested to see where your thoughts and feelings are in the comment section, and I'll pick up with this in probably about a week's time. Give it enough time for the comments to fill in, me to look at them, and we'll breach this again. Thanks for tuning into this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Something kind of a little bit different. It was just something I really wanted to get off my chest and get your interactions with, so that next time we talk about it, I can have maybe a bit more of a 360 point of view on not just how I feel, but maybe how a lot of you guys in the community here on CeltsAreHere feel. On screen are now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you haven't done so already, please do hit like and subscribe for more content like this. Hail, hail. Pray. Won the hoops.